Tonight on Addiction Talk, our guest is Leah McSweeney. She's a former star of Real Housewives of New York City, fashion industry pioneer who established the streetwear line Married to the Mob, a podcast host, and the author of Chaos Theory. From enduring a very public relapse to battling addiction as a teenager, Leah is giving us a behind-the-scenes look at her life and what it truly takes to win at sobriety. Addiction Talk starts now. And welcome to Addiction Talk. And Leah, you are joining us from New York. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. And I love that video intro. It was so sweet.
It just shows all the amazing things that you're doing, you know, reality TV, entrepreneur. I hear you're launching a dating app, a sober dating app. We're going to get to that later on, but you really are making an impact on the world. So we're honored tonight that you would be willing to share your sobriety journey with us.
I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to have a sobriety journey to share.
For real? I know that is so true because so many people are struggling with addiction. So many people in our communities, whether it's our family members, are struggling, and many people are still looking for answers and looking for help, and they need to know they're not alone. And so I can imagine when you first started sharing your journey, that was big for you because as you went through this in your own journey, were there times that you felt alone?
Oh my God, of course. There were times where I had maybe the most people hitting me up, or the most Instagram followers, or the most text messages on my phone. And I felt the loneliest, right? Or at an event and I felt totally alone.
Yeah, I can imagine. And a lot of times people see you in the public eye, but they don't know the journey, the pain, the darkness, and all that's going on behind the scenes. And I know when I first started out, I asked you how you were doing, but many of your fans want to know you've had so much going on. I know they've seen the media headlines, but how are you truly doing with your sobriety and maintaining your mental health in light of all of the headlines right now?
It's funny because Kelly Catrone, she's this amazing woman. She's a friend of mine, and you might remember her from The Hills or America's Next Top Model. I called her, I call her a lot, but the beginning of all the headlines and stuff, and I'm like, oh man, this is, I'm feeling effed up right now. And she's like, Leah, you're having an ass backwards spiritual experience right now. And I was like, wow, she's right. And I kind of started looking at it differently. And first of all, I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm leaning into my program and my meetings and my sober friends and my regular friends that are not sober but are amazing. And I feel like as hard as it is to be going up against a very powerful entity, and for people to maybe also just not agree with me or, come at me and get blowback and all the things, I don't care because this is the truth, and I have it on my side and my intentions are really good. And I check myself all the time about that. And I use the things that I learn in recovery, about intention, about taking inventory, right? And all of those things. And I'm in a really good place right now, and it's taken a long time to get here. And I'm not, obviously, it's a journey and it's not linear, but the thing I learned is to have a healthy fear of your addiction. And you can never feel like it's that far away, because it's not, and I learned that the hard way. I was one of those people that was like, I'll never drink again. I will never drink no matter what. I'm not drinking. And then boom, 9 years later, I drank, right? So I have a very healthy fear of my my addiction and my alcoholism. So, but I'm doing good. Thank you for asking.
Which is really interesting that your friend described it as a spiritual awakening. Yes. What does that mean to you when you say a spiritual awakening?
To me, it means, well, first of all, right, we're living at a time where social media, right, is just like this thing is in our hands constantly, and we can be barraged by negativity constantly. I'm pretty sure that Instagram has a negative like algorithm that shows you like negative comments first. It's really messed up. So I have to not Google myself. I have to not have, I don't have Google alerts. I've never had that. But like, I can't be looking for stuff. I can't look at the comments. I can't, so I have to just be good with myself, and then it won't matter. But even when you're in a really good place, it still hurts, it's still like not like an enjoyable experience to like have people coming at you or be dealing with this situation that I'm in. But I am seeing it spiritually because first of all, I'm definitely leaning on God. And also I'm like in the big picture, what does it even mean? Right. What the only thing I need to worry about, and Kelly Catrone said this to me also, she said, the only thing you have to worry about right now is not to drink, and you take care of your daughter, and everything else will handle itself. She's not my sponsor, but it kind of seems like she is. But and that's kind of what it's about. I'm like, all right, I just need to not drink. Like that's what every alcoholic in recovery needs to do, not drink.
And I think that's so powerful. First of all, to have a friend who keeps it real with you and tells you like it is. But I think what is also, so transparent about you, Leah, is saying, you know what? I do get hurt by those comments.
Yeah,
people forget that you're human, right? They don't realize. It's like, I think when you're a celebrity or on TV, they forget that you have a heart and that those things are painful. And particularly when you've gone through a tough journey or struggling with your sobriety, that those can be difficult. Where do you think people don't get you or they're getting it wrong? When you see those comments, where are they off?
So many things, and I will answer that, but I also want to say that like this entire experience, not just this that I'm having, but being like on TV and everything, and I see things so much differently, and I look at people in the public eye differently, and I look at people on TV differently. And the way that our society loves to watch women suffer. And I know this isn't like a feminism talk, okay? And I'm not talking about that. I'm going to be like the patriarchy, because it's really a lot of women also that attack women. I'm like, we're our own worst enemies. This is crazy, but there is something where women are treated so much differently than men. But I will say the comments, you know what you were signing up for. Take accountability. I'm in recovery. So the first thing I have to admit to myself is actually to be accountable for everything and every decision I've made. And that's not what the situation I'm in right now is even about, So it's like a deeply ingrained thing also to push back on like people, especially women, when they're like, this wasn't a good experience for me. And it's like, I'm not trying to personally offend people who love watching these shows by saying like, this wasn't like a good experience for me. I think people also think like, you got paid, you have all these Instagrams on you have all these followers on Instagram. Those things don't make my life better. Like people think that like being famous or making a lot of money, or those are obviously these shiny things that seem so like incredible, and people, so many young people, and I did read like this statistic that like 70% of like teenagers like want to be on like reality TV or be famous, and I now look at famous people and I think, and I have pity for them. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like that must be so hard. Like, honestly, it's truly like, because it doesn't, having so many more Instagram followers and having a platform, it's good to be able to talk about this stuff and have a platform, but that doesn't keep me sober. It doesn't get me sober. It doesn't bring me inner peace, So,
and in fact, you have to deal with, like you said, the negativity, because people only see the glamorized side of it. Yeah. They don't realize the comments that you have to deal with, the perception that is out there about you. And one thing I heard you said previously, which was so powerful, that for many people who have an alcohol use disorder, one of their worst fears is being drunk on TV. And you said that was a fear of yours.
Yeah.
So to have to see yourself. So it's not like you went out there and said, hey, I'm okay with this. You had a point in your life where you were like, that is my worst nightmare.
Oh, I mean, really, because there are some things that I have done while drunk that no one's going to ever know about except my sponsor. Do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah. And like the worst happened, like it happened. That's like the other thing. I'm like, nothing could ever be worse than like what, like in this situation than like what I like went through, so in terms of like relapsing and all of that. So I'm okay now, and yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that you're okay now. And speaking of the relapse, did the relapse happen? How did that happen? Because you said, many people think you get 9 years of sobriety under your belt. You're close to 10 years. How does that happen? But many people don't realize it's part of the disease. It happens so often that people don't realize it. But in your scenario, how did that happen to you? What do you think was the trigger?
So I will say that like, an addiction and an alcohol use disorder, alcoholism or whatever, it's such a complicated and nuanced like disease or illness or whatever you want to call it. And it's like very complex and I don't fully understand it. I don't fully understand sobriety or how this works either, or like, but some people manage to stay sober from the day they get sober and other people go in and out and then get sober. And then some people go out and they die, So I think for me personally, I stopped going to my meetings and I started smoking pot and I just started getting like loosey-goosey with my sobriety and being like, like, I think maybe I don't have a problem anymore, but that's what it does to you. Like, that's what your disease, that's the trick that it plays on you, and they say like, your disease is like waiting for you, like doing push-ups, when you're sober, when you're in recovery. And if you go out, for me, it's like when I went out and I relapsed, I not only like, I didn't like start off where I left off. It was almost as if I never stopped. Like it was like full force, Yeah, it was so, I'm so
happy. Do you
happy.
remember that? Were you out and you just happened to have a drink? Like, how did you, I know you said you have this false sense of security. And then you start to ask yourself, like you say, do I really have this? It's been 9 years. I'm fine. I can do this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you find yourself back in there. So where were you at that moment where that happened?
I was actually in Los Angeles visiting my sister. I was with my daughter. Not amazing. I was with my daughter. I was visiting my sister who had just given birth. And well, she had like, her baby was like a few months old and she was having a glass of wine while she was on the phone. And I remember she was on the phone and I took her glass of wine and I mouthed to her, watch this, and I chugged it. Wow. And there's really, I could give a million reasons why it happened or but it just did, like it did. And I don't, I'm not sure what could have prevented it except for like going to meetings, and like really being more serious and more scared of my like addiction and alcoholism, which I'm taking it a lot more seriously than I ever have, really, in terms of with the program and everything. And not that I wasn't serious before I was, but then it like wore off. But it's like there's a reason why people go to meetings they're like celebrating 40 years, 45 years. They're still there in their seats talking about it. And I used to be like, why are they still here? Really?
And then you have that experience because how long did it take you? I know you said it was like you never stopped once you started. How long did it take you from having that drink at your sister's to everything like the addiction just starting back up?
Oh my God, like 3 weeks. Not even, because really that second, actually I went out the next night to meet like an old friend and I had 3 drinks because that was I'm like, I'll just have 3 drinks. Now imagine I hadn't had a drink in almost 10 years, like it's not like it wasn't even making me feel good. I was kind of dizzy. Like I wasn't getting the dopamine rush. That's the other thing is that was gone. Like it wasn't fun anymore. Do it was just like, I just couldn't stop.
So that's
what addiction is. That's what it is. It's like, it feels like shit, but you cannot stop.
And so how do you think, being able to see yourself go from you'd had all these years of sobriety to having to start over again, but then to watch your journey when you had relapse on television in a show, what was that like psychologically to have to see yourself and go, that's not even me? That, look at where I was. Look what happened. You know.
Well, it was really a mind fuck. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on this, but because I had to also, film confessionals while I was like, I stopped drinking before the show aired. Actually, like it was like the pandemic happened. It was like March, and I remember I like snuck a bottle of wine, and like Kier's dad saw me, and he was like, "I'm not putting up with this shit in quarantine. Like, you better get your ass sober again." And I was like, ugh. And then the show aired a couple days later, but we had to film confessionals. So I was like trying to get sober again while also having to like film confessionals, being like, I'm drinking. It's so much fun. When I was like, oh my God, this is like not fun, me talking about this. And my stomach would be in knots, like knowing that I was like, oh my God, it's going to be the Rhode Island episode. And I was blackout drunk. What happened? I don't know. And then obviously everyone loved it. And then I was like, I don't want to ruin everybody's fun and be like, this was horrible, so it was a very weird experience. But I think when I saw myself on the show, I was like, yeah, I made the right choice by quitting alcohol again,
But how did you get through that? Did you have to journal? Did you have to talk through yourself through it? Was it the AA meetings that helped? How did you mentally get through it during that time? Because I'm sure you're seeing it and people are loving it, but at the same time, that this is detrimental to you.
I didn't get through it mentally. Like it was horrible. Like it was very damaging. It was I did not have any support from the network or the production company. And, it was really bad. It was hard. And, and I ended up really spiraling, after the entire experience, and was like, whoa, like that was like not okay.
So now you kind of look back on it. Do you have any regrets? Do you feel like if you knew what you knew now, would you still do reality TV? Because I know a lot of people do still love it. So when you look back, is it like, I wish I hadn't done that? Or you like, this is part of my journey and I'm going to help somebody by the pain that I went through?
Yeah, of course, because like as addicts, I mean, like as an addict, I should speak for myself as an addict, like there are so many things that have been not great, that like I could regret, but what's the point? Like I can't change it now. I feel like especially, and I will just tell this like story. There was one point in my sobriety where I was like really like struggling with going to meetings and I wasn't liking them. And I was like, oh, this isn't for me. And, maybe I had like 6 years sober or something. And I started seeing a monk, and who was amazing. And he took me to see his guru, who was a Swami. And it was at a yoga center, and everyone's like a very big Swami. I'm not going to name drop the monk, but and so I go to this like very small little gathering, and this Swami is speaking, this guru, and he's taking questions at the end of his talk, and someone raised their hand and said, "What should I do with regrets that I have?" Mm-hmm. And the Swami thought like paused, and said, I have a friend that's an alcoholic, and I went to an AA meeting with him once. He brought me to one. And what I learned in this AA meeting is that alcoholics, instead of regretting all the mistakes they made, is that they use everything to help someone else stay sober. And I was like, this is the most like God moment that's telling
divine intervention.
It was a divine intervention going, Leah, get your ass back to AA. The Swami even said so. But I'm like, that is like how I look at things, and of course, like, I mean, yeah, I need to try to, it's just part of my story. It's part of my journey, and it is what it is.
It is what it is. I like that. I want to go back to how addiction all began for you, because a lot of times we see where you are now, but I really want to understand your story, because I think this can help parents. This can help other people who are struggling. So take me back to when this first started for you. I understand you were 13 when you first tried drugs or alcohol. How did you get to that point? Was it peer pressure? Because I think parents need to understand how this can happen to anyone, even to their kids.
Oh my God, yeah. And I'm so grateful that my daughter doesn't seem to have the genetic component or whatever this is. Because, like I said, I don't fully understand what addiction is. Like, it's like I don't know if it's nature and nurture combined or whatever. And I think it's different for everybody. But I will say that I have a lot of family history of alcoholism with parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. And I didn't grow up with a parent drinking at home, though. But I will also say that my first drink was actually at my first communion, and I wouldn't let go of that wine glass.
Because you went to a Catholic school, right?
Catholic school, right? And I loved that wine. When I tasted that wine, I would not let go of the chalice, and the priest was grabbing it out of my hands, and everyone in the church started laughing. So that was kind of like,
how old were you when that happened?
Like 7.
13?
I was 7 or something.
7?
Yeah, I think that's how old you are. 8 when you make your communion.
Yes.
Remember 8 or 9, something like that. So I just, I don't know if it was like I just wasn't scared of it, and I felt kind of other than, but also like there's all these things, and it could have been like, well, I went to this school and I felt left out, or my dad and mom didn't give me enough hugs, or whatever it was. It's like there's people who grew up with a lot worse lives than me that didn't end up doing crystal meth at age 14, right? So I really see this as something that it's almost unexplainable. And it's not that I had a perfect life or a perfect upbringing, like none of us do, but not everyone will go and have this addiction component in their lives. And, I think it was a perfect storm of events with me moving to Connecticut and feeling very lonely there, and wanting to escape and mentally and physically escape from Connecticut, and going to raves and like loving them, I don't know, but it is just like, it's a
disease, right?
Disease. It's really in my brain. Like I can't, it's like, if I have one little sip, it's like, it's over. If I have one little toke of a joint, it's like, it's a disease. And my heart really breaks. It's hard for people, I think, to also feel like empathy. Well, we've lost the freaking ability to feel empathy, I think, for people in our society right now. But I think because alcoholism and drug addiction turns people into assholes, sorry, and selfish, and, stealing from their family and, everything, and it ruins everyone's life that's around them. It can seem so selfish, but I know the other side of it, and I have just so much. My heart breaks for people who can't find recovery or can't get it or don't want it or whatever it is, because I just don't wish this on anyone. It's really quite. But at the same time, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic, but it's because I'm in recovery. That's why I'm grateful, and not everybody gets.
So it changed how you looked at it. Going back to being 14 and then going to rehab, I think when you were 18 or 19.
15.
15. Wait, you went to rehab at 15?
15, 17, and 18. And I'm not going back.
Mm-hmm. So being so young, because we see a lot of adults doing that. What were you thinking as a teenager? And I know that's been so long ago. I mean, you're still young.
A long time ago.
but
a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, when you're a teenager and having to go through that, did you realize that things were different? Did you realize you had a problem? Or did you think your parents were blowing it out of proportion?
That's such a good question. And I'm really glad you asked me that, because when I was 15, my parents sent me to Caron Foundation in Pennsylvania. And I remember I was crying so hard the first week, because you can't even talk to your parents on the phone. And I realized that they had like just dropped me off. And like they were kind of like, oh, you'll be here for one night, see how it goes. And then I realized I was like stuck there. And I remember one of my counselors saying, like, you kids don't have a red light in your brain. You have a green light in your brain that just keeps going and going and going. And I was like, oh my God, I have this thing. Like, that's me, because I know, like, I'm partying and going to clubs since I'm 13. And some of my friends, like, after the club would go home And I'd be like going to the after hours or wanting more drugs or keeping it going for days on end, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, everyone else was like going to college and I wasn't, I was like smoking angel dust, with, in some toxic relationship with like a DJ. I mean, I'm like, this isn't like fun. This isn't like recreational. I go to clubs sometimes. This is like, there is something really wrong.
Were you ever angry with your parents about it?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, they also signed me over to the Connecticut, like a juvenile, like, and they released like responsibility of me. So I had a probation officer as my like custodial, like kind of overseer. And I had to get drug tested all the time. And if I had a dirty drug test, I would have gone to juvenile delinquent center. But, luckily I was using other people's urine, honestly. So, and I was very angry at my parents for doing that. I felt extremely, sorry, my dog gets very excited. I was very upset about that and felt like, the last thing I need is tough love. Like I need a hug. And like, sometimes I would say that to my mom when I finally got sober at age 27, like I really had a hard time dealing with her and my father. And I would say, how could you just throw me out like that? And, then when I was 18, they really wouldn't let me home, but now I understand what they were doing. And I know they had no other option. And I was a danger to be in. I was not, a lot of bad things happened, like a lot of bad people coming to the house, a lot of the police. I mean, who would want I have 2 younger siblings, so I had to forgive myself for all that because I forgave my parents, of course. They've done their best, they've really done their best. I put them through, my disease put them through hell. I didn't mean to, but my disease put them through hell.
Mm-hmm. But what is amazing to me is not only have you rebuilt your relationship with your mom, I've seen you do interviews together and she's like so proud of you, of all that you've done, but you took all of that you went through and turned it around, became an entrepreneur, launched your own streetwear line, like totally took all that stuff that happened. That can wipe some people out, literally. I mean, even after that, you said finally getting to 27 and having this sobriety, but you kept going and you didn't let it stop you. What do you think clicked in you that said, this isn't going to be the end for me, but I'm going to come back from this? How did you do that? Because a lot of people want to give up,
It's interesting because I actually think that my addiction issues, like the part of the brain that it affects, like I can also harness it for like good, right? And like that, because I would stop at nothing to get high. I would stop at nothing. I was a maniac and I wouldn't take no for an answer. And I would, I just would like, I was the ringleader of my friends, I was really like, and I feel like I took that energy and like put it into the business, into Mob and built it up. And I'm relaunching it soon. Because the last 5 years have been really hard. Also, COVID was really hard for me. Like, I don't know if it was, and I know it was hard.
Everybody. I mean, we saw more people seeking treatment just because the isolation, being alone, the hopelessness of the time, not being able to attend meetings. I mean, those are all a recipe for relapse.
For disaster, really. And, again, that was going on with the show and with right. So there was a lot of things happening at once. And like, but COVID really broke me in a lot of ways. And I lost myself. Like I know, like I read that Cardi B, love Cardi B. She's so honest and she's so vulnerable. Like,
she tells it like it is.
She's like such a hard ass, like, but she's also like such a vulnerable, sweet, like person. I love that she can show that side of her too. And I read something and I freaking related so much. And she said like, when she was like reading the comments and like, it was affecting her. And she said she lost herself and that she was scared of everything. And I'm like, that was me not long ago. I was scared of everything. I was scared to do my podcast. I'm normally a girl I'm not scared of anything, like nothing, like really, You
think it was the unknown related to COVID that made you feel that way, or the isolation, or just realizing something so crazy as COVID could even happen?
No, I think it wasn't just COVID related. It was really the negativity and the toxicity of the show.
In combination. So you had all this.
All of it combined. And I really became a shell of myself. And but I related to that so much. Like I became scared to do anything, like scared. And now I'm back to, I'm like, no, I'm going to do it.
You're like back to yourself. How did you get back to yourself? I know your sobriety, you're now in recovery 4 years from alcohol. So how did you get back to yourself? Was there something you heard, something you saw, or was there a light bulb moment that helped you come back to yourself and say, I'm going to do this again.
Yeah.
I can do this and rebuild. So
in January of 2022, I really suffered something that I'm still not really sure what it was. It was kind of like a dark night of the soul situation, but like something that like, it was like my body and soul moved away from each other.
You could feel it, like a feeling?
Yeah, like it left me.
Mm.
And it's very scary. Didn't think I was ever going to recover. My mother would be like praying over me. I was saying Jewish prayers. I was saying Catholic prayers. I was saying all the prayers. I was like, what's happening to me? Went to, Silver Hill Hospital. Also, I had to get really honest with myself about substances. I was not drinking, but substances were going on. And I had to get honest with myself about like, maybe like, abusing like prescription medication that was given to me for anxiety and stuff like that. But I needed this. And my psychiatrist at Silver Hill talked about like, she was amazing. She talked about this like ceramic pottery, like these Japanese ceramic pottery where like they break the pottery and then they put it back together with like gold lacquer and they make it more beautiful when they put it back together. And she's like, that's what you're doing. And I'm like, I do not feel like I'm being put back together with gold lacquer. You know what I mean? Like what's happening to me? And I really committed to like my recovery after that and the recovery process and therapy, journaling, exercise, doing all the things. And I'm not doing all the things now. I can't lie. I'm not journaling when I wake up. I'm not doing those things. I'm going to my meetings and stuff like that. But it was a year and a half of serious, and I'm lucky that I was able to do this, because not everybody gives serious dedication to almost exhausting because it's so like myself, but now I'm in a place where I can forget about myself and I can like help someone. I can talk to someone on the phone that's maybe relapsed or whatever. And a lot of part of recovery is doing that and giving it away to keep it. And I'm in a place where I can do that.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I wanted to say about that, Leah, because I think this is very powerful. There is somebody who's in that spot that you were in, where they don't think it can get better. They don't see a way out. If you were to say to someone tonight who is in that throes, who's having maybe an out of body experience, who feels like I'm at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, and it's so dark, I can't see out of this.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say that it's always the darkest before the dawn. Mm-hmm. You cannot give up no matter what. There is a solution. Like there is a solution. And sometimes you have to go through it to get out of it. Mm-hmm. But that's the only way to do it is you have to go through it and you have to feel it. And that's the only way.
And I know you said before that sometimes in your darkest hours is when you uncover who you really are. Like you uncover yourself. What have you learned about yourself in those darkest hours?
Oh my God. I'm way different than I thought I was.
Really?
Yes. I am like, I'm like so sensitive and soft. And I really am like, I thought I was like a bitch, I'm like, not, I'm not. And I thought that like, I don't know. I thought that, I also thought that like things could make me happy that were external,
Mm.
and then I got the external things and, none of it worked and none of it made me feel better. And like, it's funny because like on the show too, like, my apartment got made fun of and it like really like bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, I live in a nicer apartment now, whatever, but I had like my darkest moments in this apartment, this nice apartment. I can't wait to move, really. And like, but it's like that, those things that you think are going to make me feel better or whatever. It's like, if I don't have my sobriety, I have nothing. Look, I'm not saying I wouldn't love to live in a penthouse. Okay. I'm not Mother Teresa over here,
like I'm not going to go way back,
let's be real, but I think it is a good lesson to like, the entertainment industry is really like kind of a dark place too for women. I don't know. It's just like, I've just learned a lot. It's an experience that not a lot of people have. And it's interesting to be on the other side of it. And like, I don't think I want to go back there.
Really?
Yeah.
So even if you had the opportunity to do reality TV again, you don't think you would do it?
If it was like, no, well, let me put it this way, because also I think that there's plenty of, reality TV that is like done in that is like really great and like probably made in like non-harmful ways. And of course there are ones that are made in harmful ways too and that are like very exploitative. And I also do wonder how much money those 90 Day Fiance people are making, because a lot of people are tuning into that. But how much are they making an episode? I need to know,
You consider that? No, I'm just
I'm like, what? I know, maybe I will be on 90 Day Fiance,
Where is he at though?
But I would definitely, I think, have to be an executive producer and have to have some kind of like control over what's going on to make sure that everything is like copacetic. And like, it would have to be some kind of like feel good. Like, it would have to be like aligned with the things that are important to me now, or things that make sense. But I'm not thinking about that at all.
Mm-hmm. I can see that because you have a lot going on next, and we're going to get into that next. But I just wanted to touch on one thing first about the entertainment industry. How can we do a better job, or how do you think the entertainment industry can do a better job of supporting people in sobriety? Because you go to events, there's alcohol or things going on. And for someone who's in recovery, that's a constant trigger. And for some people, they may say, oh, I can deal with it, or it's not a big deal. But for a lot of people, it is a big deal.
Look, alcohol is not going anywhere. I think that like, obviously there's, no one wants, alcohol is going to be here forever. And it is what it is. It's like, I have like a, alcohol in my apartment, like for people, if they come over, not like I'm entertaining tons of people here, but it's here and it doesn't bother me. It's more about the mindset, and it's more about the attitude that the higher ups have, I think, with the talent. In my experience, it's like treat people who are struggling with alcoholism and mental health issues and addiction issues with human decency and compassion. I'm not saying that like you have to get them sober, because that's not your job. And it's also like very hard to do that, but maybe like don't completely exploit their vulnerability and their struggle that they're dealing with, offer some help. Like, just put out your hand. Literally just put out your hand and like ask them if they're okay. Because what I experienced and what I saw was the opposite of that. And
no one asked you if you were okay.
Oh, absolutely not.
Wow.
And it was very obvious that I wasn't. And and of course, I was sober for 2 of the seasons out of 3. So I got sober and I stayed sober, or alcohol free, I should say. But the hostility and the stuff that I was met with when I was sober was really not okay. And I think that people on reality TV have every right to have safe working environments, like as the same people who are walking into a restaurant, waiters and staff and whatever, or walking into, be a doctor or whatever. It's a job. So why should one person be protected and not another? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are certainly vocal about it and standing up for yourself, which I think is so commendable, to be able to speak your truth, be transparent, and to share where you are. And so many people want to know what's next for you. I got to get into this sober dating app. First of all, I heard you are launching your own sober dating app. How did this come up? How did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so a good friend of mine, Jessie Urvader, she's an amazing young woman who's been sober since like the age of 19. She's really inspiring, and it's really her idea. And she brought me on as an advisor and a creative lead, which I'm just so excited. I've never worked with a tech company before, and it's obviously like where everything is going. And it's called Club Pillar. It is a sober curious dating app. It's not only for people who like just don't drink at all or in recovery. It's for people who maybe just like their lives don't revolve around alcohol, because obviously so much of dating is like, let's get drunk, let's go to a bar, and it's like kind of not everybody wants to do that. So it's really for like-minded people who are maybe more focused on like being healthy or, not getting drunk.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's huge, because a lot of people, dating and sobriety is a big deal. It's like, do you put it on your profile? Do you say it after you meet the person? When do you reveal it? So this takes all of that out of the...
No one's ever going to ask you anything.
You already know. So if you're in there, you already know. So it takes that maybe awkwardness or uncomfortableness that some people may feel, and says, these are people who get it. Even if they're not sober, they realize that they're respectful of it and realize that they could date someone who's in sobriety and support that lifestyle. So this is a game changer. When is it coming out?
The app itself is launching in June, but you can go sign up at clubpillar.co and be on the waiting list. And I will say also, the thing that resonated with me the most for Club Pillar and why I'm so excited to be a part of it is really because it's about breaking the stigma around sobriety, like this kind of theme of like, oh, it's boring to be sober, or it's not cool or whatever, when it's actually the shit. Okay. It's really the best.
What's been the best? I know you say, because a lot of people that is a theme. They think, well, if you aren't drinking, how can you be fun? How can you have fun? How can you enjoy life? And so what do you say to that? Because I think that is a misconception of a lot of people who are not in recovery.
I mean, look, it's a different kind of fun, obviously. I'm not throwing tiki torches anytime soon, but it's a different kind of fun. No, I'm not, we're not, actually, I shouldn't say people aren't going out and staying out late, because when I got sober when I was 27, I was not ready to let the party girl thing go. Okay. And even though I should have, but I was like chugging Red Bull and going to clubs till like 5 a.m. So you can that's the beauty of being sober. You can really do whatever you want to do. There's nothing. I thought that like when I got sober at 27, I was like, my life's over. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it. And I had no idea my life was just beginning, and that I could do anything sober that I did drunk, and so much more.
Mm-hmm. And in the right state of mind, where you can make the best decisions for yourself. Well, Leah, this has been such an incredible interview with you. Thank you, first of all, for just being so transparent and sharing your journey with us. I learned so much, and you are inspiration. Just the fact that, hey, things happen in your darkest moments. You find out about yourself. You can rebuild. Don't be afraid to continue going to those AA meetings, no matter if it's your first day or your 500th and day, or it's been years. That you have to continue to work the program and surround yourself with people who believe in you and support you. Is there any final words of wisdom? Because you've dropped so many golden nuggets, for families and for everyone. But is there any final words you want to say, Leah, before we sign up for tonight?
Just thank you for having me. This is really, this is like the good part about this whole experience. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you all for joining us. And that's going to do it for another episode of Addiction Talk. Good night.